Welcome to Soltron. This is a video review for, I guess you'd call these like Tobot Voyager figures or medium-sized. All right, here's a comparison with some Transformers, so you can see that these guys are Voyager-sized almost exactly, and that the larger ones are kind of Commander class, I guess you'd call it now. And here they are with some other Tobots. So the Tobot minis, I think, go really well with these new Voyager size guys. I think this is a really good scale. And then you can see these like combiner ones are now actually in scale with the other combiners. So that's pretty cool that they're all the same size now. These guys were actually like, what is it? The Admiral was like 2 heads taller than Master V in the deluxe form. So this guy is like significantly smaller. And this guy's like 1 head shorter than he used to be. He didn't shrink that much. Let's start with the Voyager, the Great Admiral. This was the guy that actually initially got me into Tobot in the first place, was seeing the Korean videos of the DX version of this guy combined with the tank guy. But you can see he looks basically just like his deluxe version. He's missing a lot of paint apps and color separation though. Like the big things are these fins are not orange and they can't fold in anymore, so they're always going to be permanently sticking out, so that's kind of annoying. And then there is a lot of red in here. I'm sure there was more breakup in the original figure. There was like a dark gray here. There was some dark gray accents, so it wasn't just a huge blob of red. And then on the back, you could actually, in the DX version, there was definitely more color separation, so it wasn't just everything lost in red. So he does have a little bit of cheap look to him, but he's actually, in hand, he feels pretty good. I would say that this guy's a 9. His quality is pretty excellent, which I was very surprised about. I thought these guys were going to feel a little bit cheap, so I'm really glad they feel really good. They feel as good as the mini Tobot for sure. But anyway, he's got his sword, and this has always been flimsy. Even on the DX version, this was flimsy. And then he's got his shield accessory, and now they included like a little wheel for him to roll on. And then he's got the other 2 wheels on his feet now. One thing I don't like about this guy is I feel like his head is too big. It definitely needs to be shrunk down a little bit to be in proportion with his body. He just does not look as good as the DX version. He looks out of proportion. And then there's some weird indent on his arm here, which does not look great. And then I think they missed a good opportunity to give him some like shoulder joints or elbow joints on this version. He is basically just like the DX version. So he's got these hinged fingers. They don't actually open though. So that's kind of weird that they even bothered to hinge these for no reason. And then he cannot turn his elbows, no bicep swivel. He's got all this outward motion, no head articulation still. And then he's got, if you can get the skirts out of the way, he's got a full outward kick, a full forward kick, or not a full forward kick, but so I guess these are both hindered. They're like 45 degrees on both, my mistake. And then like no back kick at all. I'm not even sure why. Doesn't look like there's anything blocking him. It just doesn't work. And then he's got about 45 in the knee as well. So he can get sort of poses, but he can't turn his head or his arms. So he's not going to look very cool, which is really too bad. They could have made this guy a little bit more articulated. And then one thing, unlike the minifigures, like these guys always have a lot of ball joints. This guy has no ball joints. It's all hinged and universal joints with ratchets. So this guy is actually very well made. You know, he's definitely not a knockoff. And then if we look at the directions, they're very official looking. They have all the characters and whatnot, and it's all printed in Chinese, but it's basically your typical Tobot instructions. And then I also wanted to mention like the price on this guy. These Voyager figures are like $15 on Sir Toys compared to the mini Tobot figures, which go for like more than $20. So this guy's actually cheaper and feels a little bit better because he doesn't have ball joints. So he's actually kind of a better quality material. Anyway, With the shrinking, you're going to lose pretty much all this guy's gimmicks. So this dragon no longer detaches, which is unfortunate. So it just folds forward into the prow. You're going to fold the backpack. And then another difference from the DX version is this used to be a panel, this whole bridge section, and then this would sandwich on top of this, and then you'd have another panel on top of a panel. I think this deals with the kibble much better, is just leaving it on his legs. It simplifies his transformation a little bit, so that's another difference. Anyway, you're going to straighten out his legs, peg them together, and then just get his arm sections in place. So he transforms exactly the same as the DX version. Because these guys are so simple to transform, they translate really well to these tiny little versions of themselves. And then you're going to rotate the head around, and then they didn't fix this, which is annoying. But they did actually add a little panel under his neck, so there wasn't a gap there. So that's a little bit of a fix for his robot mode. And basically that's your vehicle mode. And then you just take the sword, peg it into the shield using this peg right in the middle. And then you're just going to clip that into the bottom here. Everything is nice and secure, fits very well. And then this is how he scales with like a deluxe figure. So he scales pretty well with the mini Tobot figures. Oh yeah, and then one more step, you gotta pull out these thrusters and slide them back. Okay, there he goes. Now he's official. But yeah, he looks really good. And since there's no mini version of this figure, this guy is a pretty good stand-in, except for with his disproportionate head. And I've always loved this alt mode, this battleship, just looks really cool. Okay, next we'll go with, I don't know, what is this guy's name? Is the combination Big Trail, or is this guy Big Trail? I'm not sure. But anyway, you can see that he looks almost exactly like the DX version. The color separation is really good. He's got a lot of different colors. There are like a couple of paint apps missing, but you kind of don't notice it. He translates really well. And this guy is still, for me, even at this size, he's a 10. As far as the robot mode, he just looks really incredible. He turned out really nicely. And then his articulation, he still does have rotating head, so that's nice. He has rotating arms, and then he does have an elbow joint. He does not have bicep swivel, which is pretty typical. And then he's got outward kick, forward kick, back kick. This guy feels really good in hand. I would say this guy's a 10 for quality. He just feels really great. Very happy with how this guy turned out. Yeah, he does pretty much all the articulation of the original figure. And then you have to, there is parts forming involved. You do have to take his little toe key, and it does make a buffalo, I guess. I mean, sort of. And then a giant bull head. And then you just fold out these back panels, fold his arms up, and then get these panels ready. Then you're going to rotate the legs around, connect them to each other, and then you're going to fold his legs forward, and then on the knee joint, and then you rotate his shoulders, and those are going to rotate using a double joint into this position. So he's actually a little bit involved, but he's kind of perfect for this size point. Like, you could probably make a deluxe figure out of this guy, and he would still transform pretty well. And then I always liked that this guy could just be like this front end truck, but he's actually supposed to go this way to not be a snub nose cab. So he's actually a long nose. And then he's got these little panels back here. I don't even know what the point of these are. I don't think these actually make him look less realistic, I think. But yeah, he looks really good. And then if we scale him with our mini Tobots, he scales pretty much perfectly. Like, he was just made to go with these mini Tobot figures. All right, and then here's the 360 of Invincible, which is kind of a dumb name, but there he is. It's really hard to even tell this guy from the deluxe version. I couldn't, when I got him out of the box, I thought he actually was going to be the same as the DX version because he's actually still pretty big. But you can tell he's not the DX version because he doesn't have color separation here. This whole chunk does not end up on his back. You can see there's a lot of little details missing, like the little vents in the forearm, and these don't fold up as nicely as they do on the DX version. So he's definitely different. And then one thing that is definitely worse is his head crest has hollow waffling. So in the DX version, there's like little details back here that make his head crest look a little bit more interesting. But here it's just like empty blue plastic, which is very poor look. So that makes him look pretty cheap. And then he's got the same issue as this small version, the mini version, is that these are not separate plastic and they cannot fold over. So you just have these fins jutting out, unfortunately. But otherwise, if you were just glancing at this guy, you really can't tell him from the deluxe. And his shield has to be on the wrong arm, I think, because there's no peg to plug his cannon in. But overall, he's got all the same articulation as the DX figure. And I think this guy has slightly better proportions than the smaller one. His head doesn't look so giant. Yeah, I think his head just ends up looking better because he gets his little platform shoes. And I think that helps with his proportions a little bit because this head just makes him look kind of like a witch. It's just a giant big head. And I guess while I have this guy out, I can point out that this torso is actually the captain or Great Admiral is actually a little bit bigger than this one. So they actually even scaled him up like a little bit more. You could just tell by the torso. It's a lot bigger on this version. So he's an actually different scale, which is kind of unfortunate. I would have actually liked if they kept one scale, but this is like the mini scale and then some middle medium scale. I have no idea what they were planning. And then he's got all the articulation of the DX. He can rotate his arms, which is nice. No head articulation still. And then he's going to have that same leg articulation you saw in the small version. The ratchets are a little bit looser in this, unfortunately, but they still get the job done. And he can actually kick out further on the side, so it's actually a small improvement. And that's it for articulation on this guy. You're not going to get anything outside of that. And then his cannon just pegs on with this little friction peg. And then it can be pretty hard to get out, so you definitely have to be careful. And this has a little bit of flex to it, so you got to not pull on it too hard. And then with his sword, you get the same kind of issue. It's got a little bit of bend to it. Would have been nice if it was a little bit thicker. And same transformation. You're just going to peg that into that. And then on camera, you can see that he's definitely missing some paint apps. Just a lot of ugly, blaring red, a little bit too much. But overall, I really like this combined mode. I think this robot's kind of like an 8 for me. He's very bulky and powerful looking. He's a little bit of a mess, but I just really like that he gives you a sense of scale. He just looks really gigantic. And then you unpeg these from his feet and they have the same pegs as the DX version. And then to get these off his arms, you're going to get these kinds of mushroom pegs. Oh, and actually before I take him apart all the way, when I reviewed the mini version of this figure, I was upset, or not upset, but I was like disappointed that he wasn't the same size as Overlord, because he's also kind of a duocon. And they fixed that, so now he is actually a little bit bigger than Overlord, and I think that's pretty awesome, is that he combines into this, Overlord combines into this, and they kind of look good together. He actually makes Overlord look a little bit small, which I think is appropriate for his scale. Okay, so Great Admiral, you're going to pull off this crest in the back, and then this guy also feels like a 10 for quality. The quality is very nice with these figures. You're just going to fold up these little fins, and then the head folds up. This is all going to be exactly the same as the smaller version I just showed you. And then you can see that there's no way that this guy is actually going to combine or transform into his base version. Those pieces just don't exist. So that's the trade-off, is unfortunately you're going to miss an entire simplified mode where it's just the Great Admiral by himself, unfortunately. And then you just fold this panel back again. Actually, before you do that, You need to have the arms in place on their double hinge. Okay, and then now you fold that into place and then pull the thrusters out. These ones don't shift back and forth because they don't need to, because he doesn't have his base form. And that's basically this mode, and you can see all the detail back here is just completely missing. But this figure cost $30. $30, which is almost the same cost as a minifigure, or it's the same cost as a Voyager. And as you saw in the size comparison, this guy is huge. He's more of a commander class. Oh yeah, I forgot about these tank pieces. You got to assemble these into his other part of his duocon. The tank is going to go like this. So you get the half of the tank ready, and then you can just go ahead and peg the two legs together and shift up the attachment points. And then you can just attach this turret section. Is going to peg into that peg, and it has a couple clips to hold it nice and securely. And then you can take the other half of the tank and just combine that there. And you can tell, like, from this combination, there's no robot hiding in here. This guy is never going to transform into a smaller form of tank guy. It's just not going to happen. Those parts don't exist. And to me, that's no big loss because I never really liked that figure. And there you get the tank. It looks a little bit more wonky. It doesn't have... This is not nicely sloped because they become the bottom of the feet. And they kind of traded stability for that. And then here's how the two scale together. So still looking pretty epic together. It'd be nice if there was like a drop ship combination for these two. All right, and here we go with Big Trail. You can see that he looks almost exactly like the DX version. Again, he's missing a lot of paint separation when you're starting to look for it. He's missing like some white accents, and his fists are not like gunmetal anymore. But overall, this guy would be pretty easy to mistake for the DX version. He's looking very similar. And he's still pretty gigantic. Okay, and he's going to have all the same articulation as his DX counterpart. He's got this universal shoulder joint. He's got an elbow in there as well. And then he's got a, forearm swivel. And then he does not have any head articulation, so that's one thing he loses. So that's unfortunate. I'm surprised that this doesn't turn back and forth. I'm very surprised they left that out this time. So... because these guys had pretty much the same articulation as the DX version. And he's got this much forward kick. He's got a knee that double joints all the way back, so that's extra joint. And then he does not have a joint here like the DX version. And then he's got very good outward kick and backward kick, and 45 on the forward kick. So pretty decent articulation on this guy. You can get some pretty good poses out of him. Except for he can't turn his head, so I don't know what that's about. But to transform him, you're just going to pull out this bull piece, and it's not attached to the head anymore. I'm sure I can get in his chest and find out why they disabled this. It looks like it should turn, but it just doesn't, so I don't know what the plan was there. Anyway, and you're going to rip off his arms, and that's going to become the truck robot, basically, or just a truck, because these don't turn into robots anymore. And then this part just folds down. It's very simple. And then the legs are going to sandwich together. And then they just fold on that double joint that you saw earlier. And it folds basically into this dump truck, garbage truck, military. Okay, so that's him all done. And then we're going to take these halves. And then this is just going to fold down and into this. And again, same with the other figures, you're going to see there's like fake robot parts, but this is obviously not turning into a robot. It's like one chunk of plastic. It's not going to happen. So I am disappointed with that because I really do like this truck robot. So I think that would actually make this figure perfect for me if it could actually turn into the core robot still. I don't care that this guy can't transform because I think he was also a trash robot. But I am disappointed to lose this robot and have to buy a whole nother version just to get a transforming version of this guy. I would gladly pay like $50 to have this guy still be able to transform into his core bot. And then you got his giant hammer, which still rotates and goes nowhere. I don't know what's the point of that. And then unfortunately, you're also going to lose this cab section. Can no longer, it doesn't have a double joint anymore, so you can't get the combined vehicle mode. So I think that's a loss too. So this is how everyone looks together. Actually, let's do these two first. So this is the one that still transforms into a robot. This one's the combining version. And you can see there is a little bit of upscale, maybe like 10% bigger. I don't know why they do that. That's so bizarre. So he's a little bit bigger. And then with Great Admiral, you can see he's like 50% bigger, 25% bigger. He's much bigger. So they upscaled this guy quite a bit from the Voyager sized version. All right, and here's everybody mashed together. And then here's your minifigure. And then here's the combined figure for Master V. So you can see there's like a shift in size on these as well. So I think the mini goes better with the Voyager. And then the Master V combined figure goes better with the combination forms. The combined car is still going to be too big for this truck. They don't really scale very well together. This mini one is a little bit too small for this truck. So the Voyager really scales perfectly. So just some weird different scale options. And then for some closing thoughts is like, I just wonder, why would you even want to buy these figures? Because they're all missing functionality. Like, this guy cannot turn into a robot. This one can only turn into a robot and can't combine. Same with this one. This one is not going to combine. Even if you get the other Voyager tank guy, they are not going to be able to combine. It's not going to happen. There's no combiner pieces on this guy. Same with this. Even if I got Troll or whatever his name is, he's not going to combine with this Voyager. The Voyagers cannot combine. So one of the benefits is the price, because these guys are only $15. And then the combiner ones are $30, which is an awesome price for such huge, chunky robots. And then the other reason I bought these was I was just disappointed that these DX versions are so huge. They just take up way too much space in my collection, and they don't scale with anything. They don't even scale with the new Tobot scale. So I appreciate that they have these downscaled versions, but I still wish that these guys could still turn into their core robots. I feel like that was a missed opportunity. But overall, great robots. If you're going to pick up a set, I recommend you go to Sir Toys. I'm just happy that these exist. And I'll see you in the next time.